Baby, I hear those blues a callin'. It's time for the Frasier on Frasier podcast. Hello, I am your host, Adam Frasier, and with me, my co-host, Mr. Wes Corwin. Wes,
How are
how
you?
you?
The energy chills. I got
Well,
chills.
we've been gone for a little while, so I've had a lot of pent up energy
I can see.
saved.
I can feel that. I get the electricity is in the air immediately.
We took a brief hiatus because
Mm.
you had your hands full with the comedy festival,
The comedy festival. You'll
which went
notice.
really well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You'll notice there isn't either. There's not an advertisement in front of this episode, or I'm gonna find new advertisers. We'll figure it out. Whatever happens from here on out, we'll get there when we get there.
I've gotten an offer from Monsanto to advertise on the show.
Ooh, okay. That's
So
perfect. We can get the word out on corn.
and Agent Orange and all kinds of great stuff.
Sure, it's a great company.
Yeah.
Agrochemicals.
So we're talking about episode episode 22,
Episode
season 1.
22, season 1. We're so close to the end. We are getting this
I can
thing
taste it.
across the finish line, the season 1 finish line, and then 7 to 8 other seasons, 8 other seasons,
10.
10 seasons.
10
Good
more
Lord.
seasons after this. Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us.
Okay.
Yeah, so episode 22, author
Yes.
of Frasier. So let's get right to it. This is one of my favorite episodes of this season. I think it's very funny.
Mm.
I rewatched it, and there were several moments where I genuinely laughed out loud.
It's very funny. It's funny both. It's well written. It's also very well done physically. As we covered the last episode, this is one of David Hyde Pierce's. I think it's his favorite episode based on the fact Comedy Channel, Paramount had each of the actors introduce their favorite episode, and this was David Hyde Pierce's very favorite Frasier episode.
And I think I know why, because he's very good in this. But we start off in Cafe Nervosa. We've got the Cafe Nervosa waitress, who we've seen a couple times now. Her name, the actress is Luck Hari, I believe.
Yes,
She
Luck
she
Hari.
she's very sassy. She's the sassy. She's a very sassy waitress,
She's
and
got a
I
lot
wish
of
we
she's got a lot of tude on her.
I wish we got to see more of her as the show went on, but unfortunately, I don't think she's in it much beyond the first season. Um, but her performances are always very fun to watch. So
Yes, she is in a number of. Let's see. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 episodes, like from 94 to 97. So we'll see her. We'll
Okay.
run into her from time to time.
okay, good. I like her. I like her as the Cafe Nervosa waitress. Haven't seen her in anything else.
Sure. She got a part here in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Got a part here in Ally McBeal. She was
She was in Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
She was miscellaneous crew in. She was part of the Loop group, which is a thing that you can be. I didn't know. I don't know what a Loop group. I'm doing quick Google. A group of actors go into a recording booth to fill the landscape of a sound for all the extras. So, like, presumably the part where Milo goes into the city of Atlantis, and you hear like the buzz of the city, and you hear all these people talking. The Loop group are like the 40 people they had to go like, to create the effect of, wow, what a lively, bustling city. That's what
Yeah,
she did. Yeah,
yeah, I loved her in that.
she was great. She was. She won
I
an
I,
Oscar
re-
for best
I
Loop group.
I remember watching Atlantis as a kid and thinking, man, that was an awesome loop group they had.
I agree.
So we have the waitress. She's bringing Frasier his usual. He has a usual now. He's been to Cafe Nervosa so many times that he has a usual.
He's very excited that he's got a usual. What a common man. How lovely it is to have a usual. And
Right.
then he takes a sip and he's like, "What is this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a latte with nutmeg." He's like, "No, that's my brother's usual. Mine is a double Kona with cream."
Right. So
Yeah.
she got him confused as their brother.
Hmm.
Um, Niles comes in. He sits down. He orders his usual, and then the waitress just sort of moves the coffee that she gave to Frazier closer to Niles.
Very gently scrapes it across the table from Frazier to Niles.
And Niles doesn't question it. He
Mm.
just goes for it.
Yep. Yep.
So we find out that Niles is very upset because he has a book deal that's supposed to he's meeting with his publisher, and
Hmm.
they offered him a book deal, and he has nothing planned as far as what he's going to write about, and he's got this meeting in a few minutes, and he's got bupkis.
He had a pitch. He had like a gold goose pitch, and he got scooped. Somebody else took the idea. It's sold. It's already been done. They were like, "Hey, sorry, it's been done. We need another idea from you." And he had one good idea. Now it's dead. It's dead. And Niles has asked for two extensions already, so he's got no chances left.
Right. So in, of course, walks the publisher who's Sam Tanaka, who's played by Mako.
Mako.
Who I know for stuff outside of this, of course. He's very well known for his voice work in cartoons.
Uh,
He was Aku in the original run of Samurai Jack.
Conan the Barbarian, Conan the
A
Destroyer.
ton of movies and TV. Like
Just
seriously, all the TV shows.
he's great. He's fantastic. Just about every time you can see him in anything. He was in Sidekicks starring Chuck Norris.
He was the voice of Splinter in that CG Ninja Turtles movie they did ways back.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
here he was in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965.
yeah, like the A Team, Wonder Woman, like a bunch of shows from like the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
Hawaii Five O,
Yep.
Columbo.
Hmm.
Yeah, just a ton of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so he's a great actor, and it's good to see him in this.
Yes.
He's playing Sam Tanaka, Niles' publisher.
Yes.
So he walks in. Um, it's one of those situations where he's very eager to hear what Niles has, for him. We, the audience, know that Niles doesn't have anything planned. So there's that tension,
Hmm.
and he makes an offhand comment about because he's introduced to Frazier. Also, he orders what Frazier has, and the waitress has just brought Frazier's coffee, and so Niles just gives Frazier's coffee to
Frasier.
Sam.
Now, the only thing. Now, if you go by comedy rule of threes, the only way this bit could have been improved is if a third man walked in and took Frasier's second drink for him. That would be. But again, you can't. Sometimes you can only organically do it twice, and I understand. So.
so Sam makes sort of an offhanded comment about the fact that he's oh, it's you're two brothers and you're psychiatrists, you must have incredible insight on sibling relationships.
Right. And Niles is like, "That's what we." Yeah. At first, he's like, "So what's the idea?" And Niles, and then Sam kind of talks himself into, that could be a book. Is like two psychiatrist brothers writing about sibling relationships. And Niles like, "Yeah, that could be a book, and it will be, because that's the idea that we're pitching." And Sam Tanaka is like, "Awesome, great. I'll take you guys out to celebrate on this great book idea." And that's kind of. Oh yeah, at that point Fraser's like, "I don't want to write a book," and Niles is like, "I do. Yeah, we should. You should. This first Niles. This is interesting, and it sort of comes up later. But Niles' whole deal up to this point has been like psychiatry is about the science of it. It's not about
It's
becoming
about
a.
the art.
It's
It's
not
not about
about
the
the
money, Frasier.
it's not about the celebrity. It's not about being a radio host. You're a hack, Frasier. You're a fraud. I'm a real psych. And then we find out that Niles would like to be. I like on the cover of a book on a byline. He wants a little bit of notoriety, not
He
too
says
much.
he's dreamed of the day he could go into a library, go into the card catalog, and see his name under mental
Mental
illness,
illness, which is
which is a very funny joke, I think.
it is it's a goofy line.
So yeah, Niles wants some level of celebrity, and I think that is sort of at the heart of, one of him and Frasier's sort of biggest sort of disagreements is that yeah, Niles is jealous of Frasier to an extent,
Hmm.
um, but and they address it in this, and we'll get into that all that,
We'll
but
get there.
so uh, Frasier is taken aback. He doesn't want to write a book. He's just been roped into this. Niles, basically talking him into this, all the stuff about how he wants to, be in the card catalog, and hey, we collaborated on that
The
spring
old
musical
spring musical. We
back in
were
prep school, and we did
Yep.
really well on that.
Yep.
And
Then
yeah,
they
they
sing
sing
a
a little
bit.
song,
Sing a ditty. They sing a short tune.
which is hands down one of my favorite moments in this entire show.
Yeah.
Some men go to college, but we think they're all wussies because they get all the knowledge and we get all the dum. It's great. It's a great little moment.
It's a fun bit.
So Frasier is on board. He's gonna help. Him and Niles are gonna write a book together about sibling relationships.
Yep.
You can see where this is going.
Yep.
Um, we cut to Frasier's apartment, and they're setting up. They've got their books, their papers. Niles has got his old '90s laptop.
The screen on the laptop is noticeable. It takes up like half
It's
of the top
it's a
bit.
'90s laptop, Wes. It weighs 10 pounds. The
Wow.
battery lasts 12 minutes,
12
and the
minutes.
screen is just big enough so you can see one character at a time.
I definitely got that vibe.
So they're all set to write and start writing their book. Um, Martin comes in and he wants to watch The Silencer.
The Silencer. It's on in 20 minutes.
Is that an actual show?
That's a great question. Oh, it's a film. I don't know, but it was a film that came out in 2000, so that can't be right. Never mind. The
Martin
Silencer.
has one of those TVs that can
It,
they
it
can
can
broadcast stuff from the future.
it can shoot through time. It can
only
travel. Yeah.
but only so only you can't see anything past the year 2000. So
No. Martin can see into the. He's got one of those subscription services like Netflix. He can see into the future, but he can only see movies he will regret watching. So that's just bad films. That's the only thing. Like a Monkey's Paw is the streaming service. It's called Monkey's Paw.
he like it like shows him like 2001 and like news coverage of like around September, and he's like, "Oh God, you guys aren't gonna believe what happens."
Yep.
Um, God, yeah, I have no idea what this thing is that he's wanting to watch, but it's apparently very important to him, and he wants to watch it, and he doesn't, and Frasier and Niles are writing a book. They don't want to be disturbed, so Frasier bought him a pair of headphones. I had something like this growing up as a kid, where we had like a big TV, and then if you wanted to, you could put on a pair of headphones that came with the TV
Hmm.
that just sort of broadcast whatever's playing on the television directly to the person listening. And they're
Neat.
big and bulky, and they sounded terrible.
Oh.
But Frasier got them for Martin,
Hmm.
and yeah, he's very happy with it. He's upset though because Eddie can't listen to the game with him.
Right, because again, I'm not. The Silencer. So I did some further googling. There's a 1992 movie called The Silencer, but that's not like a ball game. It's a film. So I still don't know what Martin is watching, or even if Martin knows what he's watching. But Eddie can't watch. Eddie can't hear
Maybe
it.
it's a show that only exists in the Frasier universe. So
Yeah.
we have to now just imagine what a show called The Silent or a movie called The Silencer is. I imagine it's about a librarian who has to
Yeah. She's like,
who just like
yeah.
doesn't let anyone talk in the library.
Yeah, like
That's
there's like a like Hans Gruber played by Alan Rickman gets into this library, and he's like, "We're gonna rob this library," and then presumably somebody walks up and is like, "Shh," and the movie's about the conflict between this librarian and Hans Gruber
trying to rob the library.
trying to rob the He's got overdue books, so he's trying to heist the library to get money to pay off his overdue books.
Very, very, very high price target library.
Yes.
So, Frazier and Niles amuse themselves for a little bit because Martin can't hear them because he's watching television. They can't hear him, or he can't hear them, so they think. So they take turns sort of trading insults with him. And of course, he doesn't respond until he says he's going to beat them with his cane.
Yes.
So they get to start writing. Niles is at the keyboard of the laptop, and noticeably the laptop is not on the entire time they're supposed to be writing.
Yeah, of course not. That would
Which,
be. I mean, back then, if you had a laptop on, you would be covered in radiation poisoning. This isn't a show about the Hulk. You gotta have these actors in a safe environment.
well, no, just because I think it would be so funny. I think it'd be so funny if Niles and Frazier just wrote the entire book and they got to the very end and Niles like, "Aw, dang it, I forgot to turn on the computer."
That would be good. That would be. Whoops.
Niles.
Oh, Niles.
So eventually they get the idea to use themselves as an examples. Their siblings, they're going to use their own personal history to as a sort of a jumping off point for the book. And they ask Martin for like an amusing anecdote
Right.
to start off with, something like a time of conflict when they were both kids. And Martin is he mentions there was a fishing trip that they went on. And they were really going at each other on that fishing trip. But he gets stuck thinking of the name of the lake that they were fishing at.
Mm-hmm.
It's an Indian word, Lake Watahachitachi.
Watakushi, he says, and then he's like,
Means land of a
Watawuchi.
thousand.
No.
So yeah, Martin, Frazier and Niles are trying to tell Martin it doesn't matter what the name of the lake is. Martin is really can't let go of trying to remember the name. He says, "Oh, your mother would remember. It's too bad she's dead."
It's so sad.
Which I thought was so funny.
It is a solid joke.
So Martin's not much help. But Frazier, he gets a little light bulb going off on his head, which there's a joke about that, but
Yeah.
he has the idea of basically having his listeners call into his radio show and having them talk about their experiences with siblings and conflict.
Steal their ideas and stories and put them in our book and sell them for money. And that's and Niles is like, so we're gonna exploit your listeners for our own personal gain. And Fraser's like, yeah, what do you think? And Niles is like, I think it's borderline sleazy. Let's go for it. Yeah.
It's a technique I like to call idea stealing. That is kind of, I guess it moves the plot along that Niles goes along with this, but it seems like, weird that kind of out of the blue they've always been very strict about their ethics up until now.
And now here they are, not doing that.
Yeah. Consistency, Frasier writers. So we get to the next day. It's KACL. Roz is there. She's upset about the fact that Niles is there. Niles and Roz, as we know, they don't get along very well.
No.
Niles can never remember who Roz is.
Right.
So Roz is upset. She's like, "I'm the producer. No one cleared this with me. You guys aren't doing this show." And then Frazier's like, "Okay, well, I'm out then." And then and then Roz was like, "No, come back. You can do it." So Frazier essentially manipulates Roz into going along with his idea to steal his listeners' shows or experiences for his book. Do they disclose? I don't think they disclose at any point that they're going to be writing about these, like in a book and
No,
publishing.
which is another unethical thing. The way he pitches it is, hey, I have my brother on the show. We're going to be talking about sibling stuff, and I think they say something like, and we won't be stealing these ideas for a book we're writing, which is pretty unethical because that's exactly what they're doing.
So yeah, Niles. It's the first time Niles has been on Frasier's show, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Niles he tries to do a radio voice.
He does what he considers to be a radio voice.
You know,
Hello, Emerald City. What's doing?
what's happening?
Which is just delightful. And Frasier's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm doing. This is my radio persona. Every successful radio personality has one." Frasier's like, "I don't." And I was like, "My point exactly." Which is you got him. You goofed on him, Niles. Very well done.
We do a time lapse to later. We hear a bit of a story by a woman named Laura. A time when she had to shave all her hair, and all of her siblings shaved their hair with her, just so she wouldn't feel bad.
Right.
So and you can see them just taking notes as this whole story is playing out, which again, just as a reminder, they're just stealing all of these stories.
They're just straight lifting ideas. They're just straight up everything anybody tells them on the hour. Niles is just taking notes to stuff into this book that they're going to write.
I don't even think they're offering them advice.
No, they're just great. Next, and just you keep it rolling. You keep the gold coming in.
So it gets to be the end of the show, and they're like, "Well, you know, we've gotten all these stories. We have a ton of material to use for our book, and yeah, we're gonna write this book." So that's when Sam calls.
Old Sam Tanaka.
Yeah, Sam calls, and he's talked to apparently. Reader's Digest is interested in the serialization rights to their book. So he needs them to fax him, which, again, we need to address. What is a fax, Wes? Tell us, for everyone who has never heard those words before.
Oh God, you're putting me on the spot. Let's see here. So a fax machine. So I have seen a fax machine before. Don't act like I haven't. I've seen one. I'm aware of them. If I understand a fax machine correctly, this was a very useful technology before you could attach PDFs to emails. From what I understand, you put a piece of paper and it sort of works it's like a scanner, and then you scan the document, and then it sends over to another fax machine, which will then print out the document. And I have seen fax machines with like a phone, but I've never understood if you can actually call people on a fax machine.
You can. So we actually had a fax machine in our house when I was a kid.
Wow.
And we never used it, but it was there. And occasionally we would get calls on it, and I would answer because I was always on the computer and I was right next to the fax machine.
Sure,
So I would answer occasionally, and it would be like a telemarketer or somebody, and I'd be like, you're calling a fax machine right now, right? And they're like, oh, and then that was just enough to make them hang up.
Wild. Oh,
They
man.
were so ashamed of the fact that they called a fax machine.
I thought I would be able to sell you a product, but clearly, as a fax machine owner,
Clearly, you're in the '90s.
clearly, you don't have.
I've fallen into some sort of time warp.
I can't sell someone to a something to a fax machine owner. That's
I can't sell anything to you if you're in the past.
I can't.
It'll disrupt the entire timeline.
How can I get the mail to deliver something to the distant past? That's I don't know how to write that on an envelope. That's not going to happen.
So yeah, you can call people on a fax machine.
You can.
Um, so anyway, getting back to the show, Frasier. So Sam wants Frasier and Niles to fax them the first couple of chapters of their book so he can send them over to Reader's Digest. Of course, Frasier and Niles haven't written anything yet. They've just been stealing people's ideas and stories from when
Yes.
they were from their siblings.
Yes.
So they need to still like construct that into like an actual book.
Right.
But Sam is under the impression that they've already written something, and he needs them to send the first 2 or 3 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Frasier and Niles, of course, can't do this, but they commit to it anyway.
Naturally.
Right, because it's a sitcom.
Yeah.
There has to be a situation and there has to be comedy. So this is the situation.
So, Mako, Sam Tanaka calls and he's like, "Hey, can I get you? How's the book coming?" And they're like, "It's going great." And it's like, "Cool, because I'm going to take it to the prom."
Like
and then,
liars.
And then somebody else calls and is like, "Hey, does your book have a date to the prom?" And now the book has 2 dates to the prom, and you can't. It's an old sitcom problem. You gotta. How do you trick
And then like on one of the dates, they have to like the book doesn't know how to talk to his dates, so like Frasier and Niles have to like put like an earpiece in the book's ear so they can so they can say what the book should say
Right.
over the earpiece.
that old conundrum.
So yeah, so Frasier and Niles they have till Friday, which I don't know how this is. I don't know what day of the week this is, but it's a very tight deadline. So they've got a little bit of time to write these 3 chapters and send them to Sam Tanaka, and get the book, sell the serialization rights to Reader's Digest, which I assume is good money.
I mean, Reader's Digest. Yeah, this is the '90s. Reader's Digest is a big. I think it was a big deal at the time, and now of course they have a year-long subscription for $10. But 25 years ago, a very major publication to have your work serialized into.
So Frasier and Niles, having committed to this impossible task, Frasier comes up with the idea. He was inspired by George and Ira Gershwin. Apparently, when they had to meet a deadline, they would lock themselves in a hotel room to free themselves from distractions, and they wouldn't come out until whatever they were doing was finished. So Niles and Frasier are going to do exactly that. They're going to lock themselves in a hotel room. They're not going to come out until they have 3 chapters.
Yep.
So we cut to the hotel room, and of course, Frasier and Niles, they've got all their writing stuff. They've got their bulky laptop. Frasier goes to order room service. Niles stops him. Frasier's like, "You're right. We need a good opening sentence. We gotta smack the reader right between the eyes.
Gotta hit them in the face with words."
so we gotta take them on a virtual roller coaster ride of self-awareness. So yeah, so they start writing up their first sentence. Niles comes up with something. It's from Romulus and Remus to the Lennon sisters. Sibling relationships have sparked psychological debate throughout the world. And Frasier says that's interesting.
And then Niles like, "You like it?" And it's like,
I said it was interesting.
The task ahead of us. Do we want an interesting opening or a good one? Which is rather cruel of old Frasier.
Right. So Niles is like, "Well, if you can do better, go ahead." And then Frasier's like, "I will." And then there's a very pregnant pause, and then we do another time lapse, and we can see now that Frazier and Niles, they've taken off like their jackets, they've loosened their ties. It's obviously they've been at, and there's room service now there's a tray of room service now in the room. So it's been a while since
Yeah.
we
They've
last
taken
saw
their
them.
jackets off. Clearly, the heat is getting to them. They've taken a
Yeah.
significant pause. I do want to say before we continue, Romulus and Remus is a reference to Greek mythology, kind of
Yeah.
like Cain and Abel. One brother kills the other.
I knew about that. I don't know who the Lennon sisters are.
I googled and I can't find. I can find the Lennon brothers, but I just googling the name. I don't know if it's misspelled in the script that we have here, but I can't find.
Well, because
anything.
it doesn't sound I didn't expect to be written that way. I thought it was like
Lennon, but
Lennon, like John Lennon.
I believe it was. Yeah, no. So the Lennon sisters, spelled like John Lennon, is a vocal group made up of 4 sisters that had 6 sisters in all. They didn't kill each other, I don't think.
Well, that sounds like it could be it then.
Yeah. So we need to send an email to klc780.net to get this fixed.
Right. Yeah, we definitely do, because we can't be. If we don't have these transcripts, we got nothing.
Yeah, I have no content whatsoever.
We can't remember all this stuff that happened in the episode that we just watched like half an hour ago.
It's very true.
So yeah, so we got so Frazier knows they're having some writer's block.
They're having a challenge. Frazier like after a significant pause, and Niles kind of like being like, "I'm waiting. My fingers are poised over the keys." Frazier shoots out a sentence: "The key to a good sibling relationship is the ability to be open and honest." And Niles is like, "Ooh, that sounded good." And Frazier's like, "Well, put it in there." And
Well,
Niles,
and let me just say that this is a terrible way to open your book, I think.
right.
Right, because your entire book is like, oh, what makes a great sibling relationship, and you can't just give the reader that at the first sentence of the book. You gotta, you got. If you do that, it's like, okay, well, I know the key to a good sibling relationship. I don't have to read the rest of this book that I just paid money for.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd buy this book from Barnes & Noble, but I just read the first sentence, and it kind of got to the point of it. Thanks. Back on the shelf.
Right.
Saved myself $25.50.
I don't even need to spend money on this now.
I don't.
So, yeah, this is a terrible way to open your book, Frazier. But Niles...
He's very positive. He takes the sentence and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to add a little bit to it. The key to a good sibling is the ability to be open and honest while still respecting each other's boundaries."
Which doesn't really have anything to do with the first part of the sentence.
I think the idea is, no, not directly, but I think the idea is you have to be honest and open, but also, like, I guess not too honest and open. Like, you're individual people. It is sort of here's the thing. On the same subject, I think this one is a little bit more of a... I think Niles' take is a better opening just because it's so confusing. Someone will read it and go like, wait, what? And then they'll want to learn more. Frazier's
This was written by an idiot. I've got to read more of this.
I have to know more about what this fool thinks about sibling relationships.
I mean, so I guess this is something that you and I can both talk about just because we both suffer from the debilitating illness known as having a sibling or sister.
Right. Yes.
So your you have an older sister. I have a younger sister.
I have a younger sister.
You have a younger? I thought she was older than you.
No, she is younger than me.
Okay, so we both have a younger sister. And I don't know what your experience is with growing up with your sister.
She and I tried to write a book a week ago, and let me tell you, it was a challenge. We locked ourselves in a room, and she kept trashing on my opening line, and I killed her. She's dead now.
I had a similar experience.
Sure.
Well, we're both wanted for murder.
Yeah. And what better way to keep those murder charges quiet than with a nice podcast?
Right.
With a solid podcast we put out on a weekly basis. Yes.
Semi-weekly, Wes.
We're getting back on track.
Okay.
We're getting back onto it.
So yeah, they're Frazier and Niles. They're not happy with what the other one is writing, um, and they're just basically, oh yeah, like they get in an argument about this sentence that Frazier has come up with and Niles has added to it. Uh, Frazier's like, well, all you've written all day, you haven't written anything all day except to ruin a perfectly good opening sentence. Niles is like, I was merely finishing it. It was an incomplete thought. And Frazier's like, you're an incomplete thought.
Which, now, in terms of single pieces of dialogue that won Frasier and Emmy, I think you have to draw several arrows directly to that line of dialogue.
Well, I mean, again, the show can see into the future because Frasier just called Niles a thought,
Mm.
which I think is very funny given today's slang. But you see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a thinker.
You're an. Ah, that is fun. That is fun.
So yeah, not Frasier calls Niles a thought in this episode.
Calls him a thought. That hoe over there.
So we cut to. I think there's another time lapse. We see like Frasier is just like. I don't think this was scripted. I think this is just Kelsey Grammer being Kelsey Grammer. He just has like a bottle from the minibar and he's just sort of pouring it into his mouth.
Sure, of course. That seems like a Kelsey Grammer thing to do.
Right. He's just guzzling drinks down from the minibar. And Frasier's like, oh, well, I think I know why writers become bloated alcoholic suicides now. They still haven't written anything. They're down to like, Niles is down to like his suspenders and his undershirt. Frasier has a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. They've obviously been at this for a long time.
Yes.
Frasier gets up. He opens the curtain and he notices that it's dawn. It's Friday. They've run out of time. They can't possibly deliver on the 3 chapters that they promised Sam Tanaka.
Because they've written one sentence, and it's a sentence that they can't agree on, and it's Friday. They've completely blown it. They had a shot, and it's gone.
So Niles, of course, he starts getting, starts getting snarky with Frasier. He's like, "Oh well, I'm not surprised you give up so easily. It's not your dream after all, Mr. Big Shot radio host." And of course Frasier's like, "Is that what this is about? Is this why you're throwing this tantrum? You're just jealous of my celebrity?" And Niles is like, "It's not a tantrum. I'm not jealous. I'm just fed up." It's a great line delivery from David Hyde Pierce. Yeah. He's fed up with being second all the time. Because Niles is the younger brother, so because Frasier is older, he got to become a psychiatrist first. He got married first. He had a son first. So
he's gotten divorced first, which Niles still hasn't done that.
So so Niles is very resentful of the fact that everything that he wants to do, Frasier is already done, and he's always sort of in his shadow. Frasier, points out, well, there's nothing we can do about that. And Niles is like, well, you wouldn't do anything about it even if you could. And this just devolves into them calling each other's names. Niles calls Frasier fat face.
Fat face.
He says he's a big fat face. Which Kelsey Grammer, to be fair.
Yeah.
Dude, he's kind of got a fat face. Big forehead. There is a very odd face to forehead ratio with Kelsey Grammer.
A lot of forehead, but also a lot of face at the same time.
Yeah. And Frasier snaps back. He calls Niles spindly. Which David Hyde Pierce, very very spindly, very very skinny, especially when he's in this scene when he's just down to his normally he's got like his suit on that
Right.
makes him look a little bigger, but now he's just down to his undershirt and his suspenders, which, yeah, he looks very, you get a real sense of how skinny Niles is.
He is a very small boy. He's a man, but he is also a very small boy.
He's a boy in the body of a man.
Yes. Yes.
So then, of course, Frazier and Niles start fighting. They grapple each other. David Hyde Pierce does a very impressive tackle where he like jumps on Kelsey Grammer's back,
Mm-hmm.
and then Kelsey Grammer like starts slamming up against the wall.
Sort of like has him on his back and then starts like slamming his own back into in order to try to wound Niles, and
This would be a great wrestling match, is what I'm saying.
it is. I agree.
There's a joke. Briefly, Frazier is strangling Niles on the bed, and Niles is like, "Oh, I'm having a flashback. Back, you're climbing into my crib and jumping on me." And Frazier's like, "You stole my mommy," which is something that must have happened when Niles was very little.
Yeah, they
Frazier
both
tried to murder him.
Clearly had like a full like vision of the past in
Right.
terms of their child. It was
Some sort of horrible memory that he had buried deep below.
mutually repressed was the fact that apparently in Niles's crib, Frazier tried to murder him.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
So Frazier, he's Niles has like Frazier in like a headlock or something, or something or other, and Frazier's like, "Oh my Niles, we've got to stop this. You know, we're not pugilists, we're psychiatrists." And then Niles like stops, and then Frazier's like, "I can't believe he fell for that," and then he starts grappling him again.
Mm-hmm.
So is God, Frazier eventually he walks out. He's done with us. We cut to Frazier's apartment. It's I'm assuming it's the next morning. Yeah, it says here in the transcript.
Mm-hmm.
We see Martin and Daphne at the dinner table. You didn't think Daphne was going to be in this episode, but she found a way in.
Yep. She looked into the future and saw how few lines she was going to have, and she was like, I'll show up at the end. I'll do some end stuff."
So Frazier, he walks in. They're having breakfast. It's the morning. Frazier's like, "Morning," and of course, Martin and Daphne are apparently aware of how things went with him and Niles. Oh wait, no. First, we got to. So Frazier's like, "Oh, you know," he says, "What shouldn't?" Oh, he says morning, and Daphne's like, "Oh, you seem cheerful," and Frazier's like, "Well, why shouldn't I be?" And then Martin's like, "Well, it's going to rain again. Jobless rates are up, and about 2 minutes ago, Eddie was licking that muffin that you're about to eat." So Frazier just sort of puts the muffin back. We get a doorbell. Niles comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Niles has this was the other part. This is the other joke in the show that made me laugh. So Niles is there he wants Martin to convey a message to Frazier,
Right.
because they're not speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, "Dad, will you please tell something to Frazier?" And Martin's like, "Well, what makes you think I know where he is?" Which I love. That's such a sassy. I love Martin's sass.
Yeah. Martin has a tude frequently.
Of course, Martin knows where Frazier is. He's standing in the room with them.
He's just off to the side, just barely off to the side.
Niles is there. He wants Frazier to pay half the hotel bill. They ate a lot of macadamia nuts. So Frazier's like, "Oh well, I'm not gonna pay you for this." And Niles is like, "Ah, so you're cheap as well as intellectually barren."
Got him.
So, and they trade insults. Martin breaks up and is like, "I listen to me, sit down, both of you." and he's like, I never had a brother, but I did have a partner once.
Mm-hmm.
Mitch Gussie?
Old Mitch Gussie.
And this confused me because okay, well, first of all, let's there are a couple things I want to talk about. First of all, uh, Martin says that he never had a brother, which we will find out in later seasons is not the case.
Oh, Martin. I've never had a brother except for
Except
my
for that one
biological.
brother that I have.
Right, Martin Crane, brother. Yeah, he has a brother, Zany.
Yeah. Consistency, Frasier writers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so there's that. And then this may be kind of stupid to bring up, but he says his partner's name was Gus, which I initially I heard that, but rewatching this episode with captions on, it was written in the captions as Goss,
Right. His partner's name is Mitch Gussie.
but they just call him Goss for the or Gus for the episode
Ah.
for which I don't think Goss is an actual name.
No, I don't think so.
Unless your name is Goss, in which I apologize to all the Gosses out there.
Oh,
Gossai?
the
Geeses.
yes, the yep, that's what you call them.
Right. So Niall Martin tells the story about how he was on a stakeout with his partner,
Right.
and they him and his partner got along just fine, and then they went on this stakeout, and they just sort of slowly started disliking each other, and they had an argument, and it got ugly, and
Too much coffee. They were sitting in the squad car. They were trying to write a book, and it wasn't going very well.
they're trying to write about partner cop
Yeah.
relationships.
Right, and they got stuck on this
And
sentence.
they were planning on just writing a bunch of stories that they had like heard from other cops, and they weren't
Right.
going to tell the cops that they were writing stories about them.
Yeah, and they had all these criminals come, and they basically walked down through the jail cells and were like, "Hey, do you have any fun stories about your brother?" And then they wrote them all down, and they were gonna put them in the book, but then they started fighting with each other in the
So
squad.
so after that, Gus or Goss, I don't know,
Yeah.
transferred, so he wasn't Martin's partner anymore, and then he got stabbed and died.
Right.
So Martin's like, take what you will want from this, but it's not worth it, fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this there's a beat, and Martin's like, well, or do you guys want to say anything? Frazier, do you want to say something to your brother? And Frazier's like, yeah, Niles, would you like a muffin? Ah, because Eddie was licking the muffin.
Yep.
Niles came in late. He doesn't know about that anyway. No, Frazier and Niles, they do make up. They shake hands. They hug. Martin's like, ugh, because men hugging is gross.
Yep.
It's not manly.
Mm-hmm. They do
He
say a
wants the,
couple. They say first of all, Frazier compliments Niles, says he has no reason to feel inferior. He's an accomplished psychiatrist. He's second to no one, and Niles admits he's always looked up to and admired Frazier, presumably both as a man and as a psychiatrist. And then Martin says, "Just shake hands and punch each other." And then they do. The script doesn't say it, but they do shake hands, and then they're like, "Oh, what the heck," and give each other a hug. And Martin's like, "Ah, what the heck?" And then he goes to the kitchen where Daphne is still very upset. She's like,
right.
"Ah."
Daphne had like an emotional moment listening to Martin's story, so she goes to the kitchen because she's got to she's got to get something to cry into, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So Martin joins Daphne in the kitchen. Martin's like, "Oh, what are you crying about?" And Daphne's like, "Oh, I was just thinking about poor Gus or Goss, and it must have been so hard carrying on without him." Um, and Martin's like, "Oh, well, I just made him up."
Yeah, I completely fabricated this story of a dead friend, so my adult sons would stop arguing. Just I have 1,000 of them just in the pocket, ready to go anytime
I stole
want.
that story from another cop.
I was trying to. I would love if we rewound a couple seconds and Martin did like a whole Usual Suspects looking around the room to make the story.
He was just making. I mean, Goss is like, yeah, it's a made up name.
Old Mitch, and then he looks and he sees like a picture of a geese, and he's like, Goss, old Mitch Goss. So I look over at old Gossie, and I say, yeah. We got into an argument over, and then he looks at the Mr. Coffee machine in their house, and he's like, we had too much coffee. We had an excess amount. We played, and he looks over and he sees cards, and he's like, cards. We played cards all the time.
And then he like looks out the window and he sees like a guy getting stabbed on the street. And he's like, he got stabbed.
He got stabbed.
A week later, I never saw him again.
I would never see him again.
So, yeah, the line we end off on is, Martin's like, well, at least there's one good writer in the family.
Yep.
We get our end credit scene. Eddie jumps up on the table and eats some muffins.
Yep, that's kind of what's going on with Eddie.
Yeah, I always like a good Eddie in credits little bit.
Yeah.
So that's gonna pretty much do it for the episode. we got a nice little look into Frazier and Niles' sibling relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is probably one of my favorite episodes of this season because the jokes are really funny. I do like the situation they put Frazier and Niles in. I love the little song and dance they do in Cafe Nervosa at the beginning, the first scene. It's a great episode.
It is very. Most of my notes when we talk about the episode after the episode is like my favorite bit of this episode we just finished watching was the bit where Niles and Frazier had a back and forth. So having an entire episode where they got to have extended interactions and really like talk about the nature of their relationship and like pick at each other, it was very good. It was very, very good.
So let's just leave off. We're going to talk about our next episode, second to last episode of the season. We've got Frazier Crane's day off. Dr. Frazier Crane takes a much-needed day off from his radio psychiatry broadcast. And the synopsis doesn't mention this, but it's because he's sick. He gets sick. He has the coronavirus.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Between that and thought, Frasier had more future sense than The Simpsons did. That's incredible.
I know. Exactly.
Fun fact about this next episode, it's Mary Tyler Moore's favorite episode of Frasier. She introduced it on Frasier Week. They brought in Mary Tyler Moore to say, my favorite episode of Frasier was the episode I was on. Anyway, I'm Mary Tyler Moore. I'll put my jacket back on and get back out to my car.
I'll be dead in a few years. We got, Frasier very, very it can predict the future of Frasier. I think if we watch all of Frasier from beginning to end, like by the end of it, we'll find out how both of us are going to die.
I'm excited about it.
I know, I am too. So we'll see you next time, guys. Wes Corwin, thank you so much for being here with me.
So glad to be here.
And good night, everybody. The Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.